Serial killers never found. Number 1. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper brutally murdered 5 prostitutes in less than 3 months. Their throats were slit, and in some cases, their bodies were mutilated. Precise, neat, almost like the work of a surgeon, a butcher, or perhaps a member of royalty. In 1888, in London, in the Whitechapel neighborhood, the body of Mary Ann Nichols, a destitute prostitute, was found with her throat slit and her body dismembered in a horrific manner in an alley called Bucks Row. The murder was unlike any other that occurred daily in London. But no one believed they were dealing with a serial killer until 8 days later, when Annie Chapman's body was found in the backyard of a house, her throat slit from ear to ear and her uterus removed. People were terrified. The newspapers ran big headlines about the Whitechapel murders. Rumors were flying around. Many said a man in a leather apron had been seen on the nights of the murders. The atmosphere in the city was heavy. Terrified women took refuge in their homes before dark. The police, unable to find the suspect and under great pressure, received a letter signed by a mysterious figure. I keep hearing people say they're going to arrest me, but I'm still doing my job. I always laugh when I see everyone talking about it. That idea of cutting off the victim's ears is a good one. I'll do it next time. It was a lot of fun. I wasn't in any hurry with the last murder. Sincerely, Jack the Ripper. By the end of September, fear had reached its peak. The killer committed 2 murders in one night, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, both less than an hour apart. One was killed by simply having her throat slit, but the second? Her ear was severed, her stomach was torn open, her internal organs were pulled out, and 1 kidney was removed. The coroner said, "This is not the work of an ordinary person. This precision, this speed, it's the work of a doctor or a butcher." The police and the townspeople kept watch in the neighborhood at night, hoping to find a trace of the killer. All their leads went cold, and suspects were released after fruitless interrogations. The only result of these efforts was a box of kidney pieces preserved in alcohol, sent by Jack to mock them. "I fried 1/2 and ate it," he wrote. Jack the Ripper's last victim was 25-year-old Mary Jane Kelly, who was found dead in her small, humble room. Her lifeless body was so brutally dismembered that it was difficult to identify her. Her limbs were scattered around the room, and the walls were stained with blood from floor to ceiling. Months passed. The deadly shadow of Jack the Ripper slowly faded from Whitechapel, and the case was closed, without a conclusion or any real knowledge of who Jack truly was. Number 2. The Cleveland Torso Murderer, a serial killer who never identified himself or his victims. In the mid-1930s, homeless people began disappearing one by one from the wooden shantytowns of Cleveland's Kingsbury Run slum. They were later found in pieces, unrecognizable, dismembered body parts. The first gruesome discovery occurred in September 1935. 2 unidentified male bodies were found on the Kingsbury Run railroad tracks. Both were headless. Their limbs had been severed with horrifying precision. Shortly afterward, a woman's remains were found in a trash can in an alley, also headless. With each new victim, fear grew. The press dubbed the killer the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. He beheaded his victims to make them unidentifiable. Some he mummified, others he disfigured using acid. Between 1935 and 1938, he is believed to have killed between 12 and 20 people. Desperate to stop him, police made an unusual move. They evacuated the entire Kingsbury Run slum, hoping that displacing the homeless population would rob the killer of his hunting ground, or perhaps even flush him out. But the area was mysteriously burned to the ground. The killer vanished. Many believed the Mad Butcher died in the fire. Others suspected he was a former military doctor, a man who even failed a lie detector test. But due to his family's political influence and a lack of solid evidence, he was never prosecuted. Instead, he was quietly committed to a mental institution. And after that, the killings stopped. Number 3. The Zodiac Killer. A killer who could be a lover. On the evening of December 20th, 1968, a young couple were sitting in a car on the side of a deserted road in the suburbs of Vallejo, California, when an unknown assailant shot and killed them, beginning a series of murders that would grip the San Francisco Bay Area for 2 years. The serial killer, who identified himself as the Zodiac, killed young couples. Some believe out of jealousy or hatred of love. The Zodiac claimed to have committed 37 murders, but was officially credited with 5 murders and the wounding of 2 people. Zodiac's method of killing was unusual. He either committed the murders with a gun or by repeatedly stabbing or even threatening to bomb them, and he did not use a uniform method for killing. According to Michael McGaugh, who was wounded in the second Zodiac attack on July 4, 1969, he and Darlene Ferrin were in a car in a secluded parking lot in Bellevue Heights when an unknown man with a flashlight approached the car and suddenly fired a gun into the car. Darlene was shot several times and died on the way to the hospital. Michael survived. Hours after the Zodiac attack, he called the police and said, "I want to report a murder. I killed these 2 people." He also confessed to the previous murders in December 1968, and it was then that it became clear that they were dealing with a serial killer. In the third Zodiac attack, Celisa and Brian saw a young couple sitting by a lake who was wearing a mask and a black suit with a white symbol on his chest, a circle with a plus in the middle, the famous Zodiac symbol. He first threatened them with a gun, then tied their hands and feet with rope. After tying them up, he stabbed Celisa 10 times with a large knife, and Brian, who survived, 6 times. After the attack, Zodiac quickly went to the victim's car and wrote with a marker on the door, "Vallejo 12-20-68, Vallejo 7-4-69, September 27-69, 6:30, by knife." By doing so, he officially referred to the previous murders and confirmed that this one was his too. This murder marked a change in Zodiac's behavior. He had previously killed quickly and from a distance with a gun, but this time it was planned, slow, and accompanied by high physical contact. The use of masks and symbols was a sign of his interest in power, identity, and it was more terrifying. The note on the car was like the killer's signature. The Zodiac's last murder, in the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco, is one of his most complex and significant because it took place in an urban area, and for the first time, the Zodiac himself was directly involved in a murder and escape. On the evening of October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac got into a taxi belonging to a man named Paul Stein and asked him to take him to the intersection of Washington and Church Streets. But instead of the stated destination, when the taxi reached Washington and Cherry Streets, the Zodiac suddenly shot the driver in the head, killing him on the spot. Now the strange thing was that after the murder, the Zodiac got out of the car, searched Stein's pockets, cut off the keys and a piece of his bloody shirt, took them with him, and left the scene without hurrying. Several teenagers who saw this from a window called the police and described a white man, about 35 to 45 years old, with glasses and a medium build. It is reported that a police officer confronted a man matching the description, but he was released because the police were misled by incorrect information indicating the suspect was a black man. At first, this murder was thought to be an ordinary crime, but 3 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper received a letter from the Zodiac along with a piece of the taxi driver's blood-stained shirt as proof. "I killed the taxi driver, and here is the proof." In his letter, Zodiac threatened to blow up school buses and kill the children one by one on their way home. This caused public panic. The buses were escorted by police. The parents were worried, and the town went into a state of semi-panic. Zodiac sent several more letters to the media in the months after the murder. Some of these letters contained codes that claimed to reveal his identity, but none led to a definitive identification. The police, like the rest of the cases in this video, were unsuccessful in finding Zodiac, and whenever the police found a clue, Zodiac would respond with a letter. The police monitored many suspects. One of the main suspects was a man named Arthur Lee Allen, a man with a suspicious background who was linked to Zodiac by some indirect evidence, but no conclusive evidence was ever obtained against him or the other suspects. And even with the advancement of science and the use of DNA, the true identity of Zodiac has not been revealed. Number 4. Bible John, a killer who claimed to speak for God. In the late 1960s, Glasgow was shaken by a series of murders that seemed almost biblical in nature, violent, ritualistic, and cloaked in religious overtones. It all began with a dance. Barrowland Ballroom was a popular nightclub where young women went to enjoy the music and escape their routine lives. But in 1968 and 1969, 3 of them never made it home. Each had spent the evening at Barrowland. Each was later found strangled and sexually assaulted. And each had, according to witnesses, left with a well-dressed, polite man who quoted scripture. He called himself John. The press gave him a different name, Bible John. The first victim, 25-year-old Patricia Docker, vanished after a night at the ballroom. Her naked body was found the next morning in a quiet back garden. There were no signs of robbery, only brutality. Months later, Jemima McDonald was discovered in an abandoned tenement, her fate eerily similar. And then came the last known victim, Helen Puddock, murdered in October 1969. She had gone to the Barrowland with her sister. They met a man who introduced himself as John. On the way home, the 3 shared a cab. John spoke about morality, sin, and the impurity of modern women. He said he didn't drink or smoke because he was religious. Helen's sister was dropped off first. The next morning, Helen was found dead near her home. She had been raped, strangled with her own tights, and left in the cold. Next to her body, police found 2 chilling clues: a matchbook from Barrowland and a sanitary product, suggesting the killer had known she was menstruating. The investigation went national. Hundreds were interviewed. A detailed composite sketch was released based on the sister's description. Leads came in from all over the country, but Bible John was never caught. One theory links him to Peter Tobin, a Scottish serial killer caught decades later, similar in background, behavior, and age. But nothing was proven. DNA evidence was inconclusive. And so, Bible John vanished, leaving only fear, questions, and a name that still echoes in the dark.